Hello everybody, and it's been a fantastic day so far. It's perfectly clear that pornography is a major issue, so what are we going to do about it? So, who is going to teach it, and how are they going to teach it? And that is really a big issue. So, we're going to have a little look about who are we, who are the Reward Foundation, and why should we be talking about this? What are the main challenges for teaching about internet pornography? What are the school policies around this? The reluctance of teachers to teach about it? The influence of sexual politics, activism on the curriculum? The ignorance of parents about the extent of the issues and reluctance to allow others to teach their kids about sex? And how the Reward Foundation seeks to meet these challenges. So, a little bit about us. So we're a sex and relationship education charity founded in 2014 in Scotland, but we do talks all over the UK and Ireland and abroad. We're just back, in fact, 2 days ago from America, running a workshop there as part of a big sexual health conference, but looking at the impact of internet pornography on the adolescent brain, which is particularly vulnerable to addiction of all kind and to mental health disorders. I'm the CEO. I'm a lawyer, an advocate or barrister by profession, but I've got psychology in background and a lot of science communication. I was a science communicator at the European Commission in Brussels, teaching about science and science policy there with the Cambridge MIT Institute in Cambridge University, and have been doing that ever since. The chair of the charity is Dr. Darryl Mead, who's got a PhD in science and professional in knowledge transfer and internet technology. Our charity has been accredited by the Royal College of General Practitioners to run workshops for professionals on the impact of internet pornography on health. And we follow the research and make it accessible to non-scientists, because as we've been seeing, it's incredibly important that people understand the science and know the difference between the good science, the good academics, and the not so good academics, because the multi-billion-dollar porn industry is fielding a whole load of academics to promote the idea that porn is not harmful at all, and there's no such thing as porn or sex addiction. So it's just like big tobacco back in the day, where they had doctors with their nice white coats and stethoscopes saying there's no link between smoking and lung cancer. So that's what we're seeing today. And it was very important what Julie Bindel was saying, because they have infiltrated the media to a huge extent. While they're trying to work with the academics, there are certain academics who are funded by the porn industry or indirectly by the porn industry, and we know this. So that the research is incredibly skewed, or they are getting to journalists, particularly women journalists, and the lies that are being told about the people who are trying to highlight that porn is not just fun-free entertainment. There's actually a $10 million defamation action going on in the States just now against one of these porn-related pundits, who is she's actually a woman scientist, but she's saying there's no such thing as porn addiction, and she's getting on the British media and giving out a completely false message. So we've all got to be in our mettle about, just because it's a scientist doesn't mean to say that they're speaking good science. So we also teach in schools, and we're developing lesson plans for teachers, which we're about to launch, that look at porn and sexting and its impact on a variety. We speak to parents and provide materials to help them speak to children. We've got a stand out there, and we've got some examples of our free Parents' Guide to Internet Pornography. But if you look at the rewardfoundation.org website, you'll see a very, we think, a useful handout for parents. It's got lots of little videos and explanations about, what porn is really about, to educate parents about the matter so they can talk to their kids in an informed way and not be fobbed off, oh mum, oh dad, you're just so out of touch. It's really important that parents understand the impact this is having on the adolescent brain so they can talk usefully to their own kids about it. We also respond to government consultations and raise awareness. So, what are the challenges then for the schools? Well, the internet is being promoted, obviously. It's very important, you know, for the attainment gap, the difference between richer kids and kids who do better and the less ones, they reckon, is to do with access to the internet. And while the lessons tend to be about stranger danger, what they're not teaching them about is that the kids themselves can become hooked on porn and then act out a whole variety of sexual assaults. And I'll be talking a little bit later about the incredible rise in child-on-child sexual abuse throughout the country. The next big problem are the teachers' unions. Pornography is a taboo subject and the teachers have not been trained. When we tried to get some of our lesson plans piloted in one of the schools in Edinburgh, the head teacher said, well, I think it's a great idea, but he said, I know that there'll be lots of teachers in the school who won't touch it with a barge pole. They think they have not been trained in this, they don't want to touch or talk about pornography, and they're just not going to do it. And they'll go on strike, or they'll certainly go to their unions. So it's very important, while it's saying we need, you know, education in schools, you've got to be aware of what the teachers think and what they need to do. But one of the things we are doing is, with our lesson plans, we're offering train the trainer sessions to teach the teachers how to teach about pornography without using porn, and teaching it as a science lesson so that it's integrated as part of the curriculum. Teachers are saying they're overburdened with responsibility for teaching on social problems. So who's going to teach it? The problem is that so many of the people who want to teach it have political agendas, often influenced by these same sexologists that I've been telling you are very cosy with the porn industry. One guy in particular, David Lay, is now a consultant to X-Hamster, one of the really big porn industries. And when we run our workshops for sex therapists and other healthcare professionals, they refer to these sexologists saying, oh, but they say that porn's absolutely fine. What's the issue? So then you've got to unpack that. So getting the right balance and helping people understand that this is not an agenda-free zone is important. There was an article came out the other day about Warwickshire County Council and their new Respect Yourself guidance. Have any of you heard about this Respect Yourself guidance? Yeah. Well, despite the fact that there was a 521% increase in child-on-child sexual abuse in the schools in Warwickshire County Council between 2013 and 2016, they've come up with this agenda, Respect Yourself guidance, that says that it dismisses the notion that porn is in any way addictive or damaging. And they're basically doing a big PR job for the porn industry. They mention studies show that female porn stars have higher self-esteem and job satisfaction over the average population. Go figure. Most porn performers last 3 to 6 months in the industry. It is so punishing in terms of mental and physical health issues. So these guys, whoever's put this Respect Yourself agenda out there, are typical of a lot of the sex educators we are coming across throughout the country. They say, just teach respect. Just teach consent, but what they want consent to are pornified acts. It's allowing boys to perpetuate the crap that they're seeing on screen. And as long as girls consent, it's all okay. Well, from the legal perspective, and as a lawyer, I can tell you, consent is one of the most difficult areas to deal with. And it's very disturbing the way consent has been mangled in the English system, but also in the Scottish legal system, and they're two separate legal systems. I can tell you that more than 75% of the caseload of the courts in Scotland are sex crime. More than 75%. When I was a young lawyer 20, 30 years ago, it was 25 to 30%. But the courts are completely overloaded, and it's not just the historical child abuse, it's a whole range of things, and it's things like 10-year-olds raping 5-year-olds, and they do not know how to cope with that. The level of child-on-child sexual abuse. We heard those horrific figures for Warwickshire, but overall in England and Wales, in that same period, 2012 to 2016, there was a 78% rise in child-on-child sexual abuse and 34% rise in Scotland. And it's getting consistently worse. I heard yesterday from a police officer He says that strangulation is the activity du jour. And of course it's 50 Shades of Grey, it's the whole BDSM thing, which if you're an adult and you want to practice and you've got your safe words, that's fine. But for 13-year-olds who do not understand consent, well, I wouldn't say it's fine. I think adults need to be informed as much as anybody else about the harm that porn can do and how it can wreck relationships. But certainly kids need to be protected from this. So it's really important that we get the messages across about the health, the legal, and the relationship, and even just the most important thing, attainment for kids. They are so distracted by pornography, sitting up till 2 and 3 in the morning watching porn, that they're exhausted going to school the next day. They can't pay attention. We're seeing high levels of social anxiety and depression and all kinds of things. The lack of empathy we've heard, believe it or not, empathy comes back, compassion for others, particularly compassion towards girls, comes back when guys quit porn. Anyway, let's keep going with this. I've got stuff to go through. So we feel that teaching about the brain, the neuroplasticity of the brain, particularly the adolescent brain, is critical. Attachment, trauma in childhood are all relevant, but there are kids who have not had those incidences in their lives who still are becoming hooked on pornography, because pornography today is hyper-stimulating in a way that it never was in the past. And it's completely rewiring their brains so they need higher and higher levels of arousal in order just to feel normal. So it's really important that we teach about the brain, because we've seen that with a colleague of ours, Gary Wilson, did a brilliant TEDx talk called The Great Porn Experiment, which is now available as a book, and there's copies of it for sale out there, little plug, on our stand. But when guys understood how porn was affecting their brain, and the fact that they could take control of that and get the control of their brains back, that was significant in helping them have the courage and inspiration to quit porn. And it's not easy, like giving up anything, smoking, chocolate, whatever, you might want to change. But pornography in particular, it is so appealing, and it's designed to be so appealing that it's incredibly difficult to give up. But the science, brain science is best, but a lot of teachers think it's too hard to teach, so we need to make it accessible, and we've tried to do our best to make it interactive and fun as far as possible, but certainly accessible. Children want lessons about pornography, even as far as including as a career option. There was some research done around Edinburgh 2 years ago when they were trying to look at how they could improve their sex education programme. And kids were saying, well, we want to know more about pornography, we want to know how to manage our relationships, and we want to know about our career options in the sex industry. So that's how glamorous it looks to young kids who think they might not do well otherwise. So as I mentioned, the focus in education has been largely about stranger danger only. And there's complete ignorance about the escalation in porn, going from, plain vanilla, up escalating to all kinds of fetish material, gangbangs, rape porn, torture porn. That the neurochemical cocktail that it produces is the go-get-it dopamine. This sort of this is really exciting. I want to. They keep seeking and searching more, but the feeling of pleasure comes from natural opioids. But then you mix that with the adrenaline rush that they get from looking at something really risky and edgy, and then they get huge sexual arousal from that. So it's this mix of neurochemicals that makes porn so alluring, and that's the barrier that we're trying to fight against. And there are very few resources in terms of time in the timetable and money, so these are the problems that we're seeing in schools. Our response is teach it as a science or a technical subject at age-appropriate levels, in the PSHE class, IT, modern studies, biology, citizenship. In fact, it's curious that today we're seeing the Extinction Rebellion people outside. You might be interested to know that there's a new project that's just come out that has shown that video pornography watching is a significant source of greenhouse gas emissions. That the worldwide porn uses as much electricity as all the households in the United Kingdom. Can you imagine? So, you can teach this in modern studies. You could be teaching it as part of, geography or science lessons. We believe neuroplasticity is the key thing about the adolescent brain, sexual conditioning and habits, the risks to mental and physical health, including erectile dysfunction. No blaming or shaming, it's in the culture, it's everywhere in the environment, so making kids feel bad is no use, and shouldn't anyway, and forbidden fruit tastes sweetest anyway, so that's a bad idea. We don't show pornography. We tell them about the persuasive technology lab and the attention economy that's all driven about freebies on the internet, and we think, oh great, something free, and human beings love anything that's free. But what they don't realise is they're paying with their mental attention, which they should be devoting to learning skills they need for, successful adulthood, pass exams, and learning face-to-face communication. It's a terrible effect on attainment. They're sleep deprived, decreased functional connectivity in the brain. The part of the brain that puts the brakes on impulsive, risky behaviour doesn't work. So it's really bad. Once you get one addiction, you're more likely to submit to others. Very poor attention, and they notice that when kids start using porn regularly, 6 months down the line, they have much less attainment levels at school. So we have digital detoxes for pupils. We have now got approval from teachers' unions and local authorities to teach this. We educate school leaders and policymakers at conferences with research on the health and attainment, workshops about the various impacts, and how to build resilience. We're working as much as possible now on the media, radio, television, newspapers, online, blogs, and to teach parents as well. So we teach about the risks and rewards of the brain, and we explain how this go-get-it neurochemical, this key source of dopamine in the ventral tegmental area, goes into the reward centre, and goes to the prefrontal cortex. And I mean, this looks a bit complicated, but it's explained in simple ways and with nice interactive things. But it's a vital pathway that links the emotional and rational brain areas. And so that functional connectivity, which happens when you overstimulate the brain over time, that pathway doesn't work well. So the ability of the rational brain to put the brakes on, saying, no, you've got a test tomorrow, or I need to do my homework, I need to get some sleep, versus, oh, I want to watch this, it's so good, my pals just sent me this best porn website ever. The ability to put the brakes on that impulsive behaviour is totally eroded. So we've got to strengthen that prefrontal cortex, which you need to be doing over adolescence anyway. But that's why we need to teach them about the brain. So it's not just finger wagging, saying, don't do it because I say so. You teach them how their brains work so they can take control of their behaviour. We've got inexpensive lesson plans, they're co-designed, we've got video interviews, we've got porn on trial so kids can look at the evidence around porn use. The guys that say porn's wonderful, let them look at the evidence of that and make up their own minds. Signpost help, and we're training the trainers. We provide a safe space to talk. One school we were in, we were talking, one boy said afterwards, how many times a day watching porn's too many times a day? And the thing is, the teachers had never allowed them to have the space to even ask that question. So, we chatted about that, but it's really important that kids they're not blamed or shamed, and they have the space to ask the vital questions. The risks around criminality, incredibly important. Nobody's talking about the laws on sexting. In Scotland alone, there are at least 12 sections of 5 different criminal law statutes for sexting alone. And once you go on the the police criminal history system, you're on it for 100 years. That's if you're a 13-year-old who has been pressurising a girl in your class into sending a picture of her tits. So as they would want, as they would call it. So it's really important that kids and parents are aware of the criminal implications of what's going on. Attitudes to coercion and the rape myth, they need to understand that. There's a brief pornography screener that we make available, which is 5 simple questions that kids can fill in and get an idea if they feel that their porn habit has gotten too far. we tell them about the free online resources, Your Brain on Porn, a whole load of free anonymous recovery websites too. I'm going to show you a very short video that's been made, and there are 6 companies involved. One of them is us, we're involved, but also the Naked Truth Project, who are presenting, who've got a stall outside today as well. But this is the sort of information we're trying to get across to kids. This next video is available free, and we would love you to promote it as much as possible. But it's got a lot of information in it. It's for parents to use with their kids, for kids to watch, for schools to use. So let us know what you think about it. Here it is.
Gabe started with porn at 12. By the time he was 22, he couldn't get it up even for a girl he was really attracted to. That's called erectile dysfunction, or ED, and it used to be pretty rare. For decades, only about 3% of men under 40 had it. But from 2010 on, rates skyrocketed. Now they're up around 35%. There's a reason for that steep increase. Since 2006, it's become very easy to stream free video porn online and access even hardcore stuff with a few clicks. Effects took a while to show up, but basically the data says more hardcore porn and fewer hard-ons are connected. After all, guys haven't suddenly become nervous about performing. They could get it up okay for porn, just not with partners. And when they quit porn, their erections come back, but it can take months. No wonder. Brain scans show that compulsive users react to porn like addicts react to triggers for cocaine use. And in a BBC Three survey of young people, 14% of all female and more than 30% of all male participants believed they were actually addicted to porn. And there's more. Research showed that watching a lot of porn made users 6 times more likely to be aggressive in a sexual relationship. No more boners and issues with your partner seem like an awfully high price to pay for internet porn that's supposed to be free. And that's a lie anyway. Free porn is a business. It helps to sell pills to fix your limp dick. It wants you to pay for premium content or sex aids. And it sells your personal data to advertisers so they can target you better. That's why governments need to step in and require age verification for online porn, just as with alcohol, cigarettes and gambling. When you turn 18, you can make your own decisions. And you'll have a better chance of enjoying actual, real sex with a partner. Until then, skip the porn, save your boner. For help, go to...
So we hope that gets a lot of the message across in short compass and you might be able to pass that on to others. And we're being supported with that by the British Board of Film Classification. Oops. So here's a little bit of an example of sort of case studies with youth with kids. A, age 13, is a boyfriend. L, age 15. L says he loves her and sent her a naked selfie. He says if he loved him back, he'd send her a naked selfie from the shower. He pleads with her every day, asking for a naked photo. He says if she doesn't send him one, he'll commit suicide. This is so typical. The boys are seeing online. You just push them enough, they'll do what you want. So there's all this domination, aggression. So we've got a whole range of lessons, case studies that the boys and girls can do in the class. And then this is an example of just some of the Scots Law and Sexting, some of the legal ins and outs, and they get some help with that. And it's the same sexting in the law of England and Wales, revenge porn, that type of thing. So the second challenge are the sexual politics. Sexual politics and internet industry activism in the past 10 years try to minimise or ignore the health risks. And I've talked a little bit about that, and Julie mentioned earlier, and others, about the people who are in favour of the pro-prostitution people. They will do anything to try and stop people saying that it's harmful. It's exactly the same as I've mentioned with the porn industry. So we've even been threatened as a tiny little charity up in Scotland. We were being targeted by people in America to get our charity shut down, to get us thrown out of the social enterprise building that we're in, with a pack of lies saying that we've been fraudulent, we've been a whole load of things. So the age verification thing, they've been getting attacked as well. So a lot of the stuff you see in the press are by the pro-porn activists, promoting, saying that it's all kinds of things. They never mention that it's a child protection issue. Respecting consent agendas is a compromise because the local authorities are terrified of saying that porn is in any way harmful. You just need to give people the facts and they can make up their own minds. Kids can work it out for themselves to a large extent. You don't need to say never look at porn, because of course they're going to look at porn. So banning porn is not the answer. Educate them about it, educate them about their own brains and about the damage it's going to do to their health and relationships. So much ignores the evidence about the risks to children and compulsive use and real life practices. Half of children with porn problems are virgins. So just teaching them about consent is no use when they're virgins until they're 25 because they're so hooked on porn. And there are criminal consequences for acting out the porn. There was a girl murdered in Ireland last summer, and 2 boys have been murdered as a result of acting out sort of 50 Shades of Grey, BDSM type stuff, but she was murdered and it was premeditated. So our response is to lobby the local authorities with evidence of harm. Leading child psychiatrists said consent and respect are totally insufficient, so it's important that the healthcare professionals reinforce that message. We run workshops for healthcare professionals and others. We make the use of the best evidence in the lessons so they can choose and make training available. The third big challenge is for parents: ignorance about the effects of too much exposure to internet in general, but porn in particular. Reluctance to have others teach about sex, particularly if it runs counter to religious doctrine. For instance, promoting active homosexuality. But there's a lot can be done to teach this as a science lesson that should not be incompatible with religious doctrine. And we're actually adapting some of the lessons for faith-based schools as well, so that they can take part. Provide as many easy-to-understand materials as possible: videos, interviews with other parents, blogs, discussions. We've got to make it available, be creative in making it available to as many people as possible in a way that they can understand it. And our free Parents Guide to Internet Pornography's got tons of videos of all different levels and complexities for people to look at. And again, let's say that's on our website, and there are some examples out on the stand. Encourage fathers to be involved. So important that they be involved, and we connect with third sector organisations to help educate them about the risks and how to talk to their sons in particular. That's what the Parents Guide looks like on the front, so you can have an idea of that. We run workshops, we do talks on Parents' Days, we modify the lessons, as I've mentioned, we allow free discussion to air concerns, and we focus on child safety and evidence of health risks, social risks, brain changes from excess use, and where to get help. There's lots of free online services to help people. So thank you for your attention, and if there's still time, I'll take is there time? Maybe 2 questions for that. Thank you.
Thanks for that presentation. I'm just wondering about whether in the, because it seems a lot like the education or the things that you do are about boys watching porn. I mean, it's what concerns me, how many girls are being groomed to make porn.
Oh, yes.
And exposing themselves and,
Yeah.
So.
We do talk about girls, and we've got sections specifically for girls. It's just that the boys are the main perpetrators, they're the main users. You saw in the video perhaps that 31% of boys, young men, identify themselves as addicted to porn, and 14% of girls. But the porn industry is now targeting girls because they've more or less saturated the market for men. So they're now, to increase market share, they're now targeting girls.
Well, girls have always been used.
They've always been used, and they're being used even more. And sadly, the feminist movement today, the liberal feminists say, but porn's empowering, it's wonderful, we can do what the men are doing. But nobody's telling them about the mental and physical harms, how they're being groomed for the porn industry. That's what they need. It's the radical feminism has been lost, sadly, and it's the liberal feminists who are... No. Well, in the local authorities, you mentioned radical feminists and they run a mile, but you need to get into the local authorities, because that's where... Liberal feminism is great in many ways, but there's a failure, in my experience, maybe I'm missing something, there's a failure to understand how porn, for some people, can escalate to extreme levels and cause all kinds of problems. So they're not getting satisfaction. They're not, there's more depression, more suicidal ideation amongst a lot of people as a result. Yes?
Hi. When you go into schools,
yeah.
In an event where a young child, where people express that they use pornography,
yeah.
what are the follow-ups, if any, with the schools or with yourself?
Well,
as an organisation?
Yeah. We signpost where they can get help if they want help. The schools at the moment, it's hard enough to get into schools. Any of the sex educators here will endorse what we're saying. It's hard to get into schools in the first place. So that's why we're doing our best to educate the teachers about what the issues are, so that the guidance teachers have proper information as follow-up. But you're lucky if you can get, 40 minutes once a year with kids. So, but the fact that PSHE is becoming compulsory in England and Wales as of September next year is a step forward. It's only optional in Scotland at the moment. So it's very difficult. So there's a massive job to be done of education around the place. And I say it's not about banning porn. It's not to stop people watching porn. People can watch porn, particularly when they're older, if they find that works for them. There's lots of sexual adventurers. Well, no, there are people, it's like with alcohol, if you say never touch alcohol, then you wouldn't get anywhere. I would prefer nobody ever watched porn ever. I would really prefer they never did. But if I go into a school and say that, I'll never be allowed back in. What works best for us is show people the harms and let them make up their minds. I think that Porn Laid Bare 3-part documentary that perhaps Sam was involved in by the sounds of it, that was horrific, what women were subjected to. I think it's still available on BBC 3 on iPlayer. But it's horrific. But people don't know that. So if they're using it at a fairly low level, they don't think it's a problem. They just think that you're some rabid religious fundamentalist, or you must, have some weird agenda, to try and stop people having fun and pleasure. So I think we've got to be sensitive how we go at this. But if adults want to look at it, I think they need to be informed of the risks so they can, realise that perhaps the depression and the crap relationships or the churn in relationships might be related to their porn use. But automatically saying that from the outset, we find has more of a negative effect than a positive effect. So it's how do you influence successfully? Of course it's a horrific thing, but it's been trying to be clever about influencing effectively is what we are trying to do. Thank you.